Hey, good evening, everyone. It's Cole Johnson with Mojo with Cojo here. It's Friday, February 14th, 2025, about 8:43 p.m. Happy Valentine's Day for all those out there who care. I got my buddy Paul here again today. He has agreed to interview me this time, so I won't be the interviewer. I will be the interviewee, if that's even a thing. Yeah, Paul, thanks again. I appreciate you being on here again, and taking the time out of your busy day to sit down with me and get my story out there.
Yeah. So we'll just use the standard questions that you've been using all along here, and you will submit to my will. Just like you asked the rest of us, your childhood. How was your childhood overall?
So let me just back up and just tell everybody that for those who don't know or
That's true. We need to
that
get your bio.
haven't listened, is I served in the Marine Corps. I was a 2311, which is an ammo tech. I served from 2007 to 2011. I deployed in 2009 to 2010 to Afghanistan. I have two beautiful children who I love and adore. They are my world, and there isn't anything that I wouldn't do for them. And I would like to think that I'm someone who strives every day to not only help veterans but help somebody in general, just by being kind or I don't know, whatever. But anyway, that's the basic bio for me.
We'll jump forward into the childhood. So before military service, what was your life like when you were not a bearded Viking god?
Oh, stop. So my childhood was a little rough, to say the least. I was born December 5th, 1983 in Baytown, Texas. I only lived there for about 6 months. Myself and my biological mother lived in Texas, and then through some circumstance or whatever, my grandfather, who I refer to as my father because I am adopted, drove from Florida, Orlando, Florida, to Baytown, Texas, to pick myself and my biological mother up when I was 6 months old, and then drove us back to Orlando, Florida. So, um, I mean, that in and of itself probably says a lot of things. There was a lot of mental abuse. There was a little bit of physical abuse as a child, but most of it was the mental piece. Being told that I would always be a piece of shit and I'd never be anything and I'd always be trailer trash and, just all the, pleasantries with that. And that type of mental abuse came from my biological mother whenever she was in the picture. So I was adopted. Fast forward to when I was 5. I uh, specifically remember asking my grandparents if they could or if they would adopt me. I have two older siblings. Shane, who's been on the podcast, that's my middle brother. I'm the baby. And then Tony is my older brother, which I'm still working on getting him on here. But hopefully he'll have some time for us here soon. Um, all three of us were adopted. All three of us were adopted at very young. Shane was adopted straight out of the hospital. Tony was adopted, I don't know, pretty much the same way. And then I was adopted when I was 5 years old by our grandparents, by Howard Sr., and my adopted mom's name was Willie Ruth. So there might be some confusion sometimes when I talk about my mom and my dad. When I talk about my mom, most of the times I'm referring to Willie Ruth, but if I'm referring to my biological mother, her name is Sharon. Um, anyway, so a lot of the mental abuse came from her whenever she would come into my life for a couple months, and then she would get, she'd have a freaking mental breakdown and go off on my grandparents, or go off on me and then leave and then be gone for a couple years and then come back and then leave and then come back. So there was a lot of that back and forth with her in and out of my childhood. Some of the physical abuse came from my grandparents, from Howard and Willie, or we'll call her Ruth because that's what she went by. Um, but nothing. I mean, like I got my butt beat a lot as a kid, and it was usually for nothing like really crazy. Like if I didn't listen, I'd get my butt beat. If I don't know, man. If I talk back, I would get my butt beat. Things like that. Which, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's back then it was it is what it is. But now that would can be like my brother Shane said, that would be considered abuse without a shadow of a doubt. Um, but I yeah, childhood. I don't remember having a lot of good memories as a kid. Just because, I mean, obviously, like I'm very thankful that my parents did adopt me and adopt us, and they did the best they could, and I every my I don't know who my biological father is. I really don't care to know who my biological father is. For all intents and purposes, Howard Senior is my dad, and he died my dad, and I referred to him as my father, and but they really they did try to do the best they could. They were raised during the Great Depression, so that speaks volumes in and of itself. Um, but yeah, I mean, so my grandfather passed away when I was 10 years old. And then my grandmother passed away when I was 15. So when I was 15, I was pretty much on my own for a while there. I did live with my oldest brother Tony for a little while, but things didn't really work out there. I was 15 or so, 16 or so whenever I lived with him, but I only lived with him for maybe 6 months. We lived in Tallahassee, and then so I moved from Fort White, which is where we live. I always say Gainesville because no one knows where Fort White, Florida is. And
I get that.
Fort White at the time was like had one red light, had a post office, and maybe two convenience stores because we lived out in the middle of nowhere on 10 acres of land. Um, so I mean, in kind of going back a little bit there, but whenever I was a kid, those were fond memories. Like living on 10 acres of land, I would just, when I after I got my ass beat, I would go out into the woods and just take my frustrations and angers out on trees, or I'd start a fire. We had a big bond, a big pit to burn stuff, so I'd start a fire or something like that. Nothing crazy. I wasn't like a pyromaniac or anything like that, but
Yeah. Give you a sense of control. You actually could go do something, make a difference,
yeah, and
control
get
your
the fuck out of my
environment.
house. I
Hell
had a
yeah.
go-kart as a kid. I remember riding my go-kart. I'd ride that thing for hours and just go. We lived on a dirt road, so you know, uh, the only people that were coming down those dirt roads were the people that lived down there. So there weren't a lot of people that would come down the dirt roads, so it wasn't very busy. But I would just get on my go-kart and go and be gone for hours, and then come home and get yelled at for being gone for so long and whatever.
There's no winning.
Yeah, no. But so I went to live with my brother after my grandmother passed away. I went to live with Tony, lived with him for a little bit. Things didn't really go well there, and nothing to do with wasn't him, but it just didn't work out. So then I came back to Gainesville and lived in Gainesville. Graduated high school. I graduated from Buchholz High School, which is in Gainesville, Florida. Um, Almost didn't graduate high school. Couldn't stand school. Hated it. But luckily, Shane and Vicky didn't give up on me, and they really got me going. And some teachers took real good care of me, I would say. They really, I guess, saw the potential. I don't know. I don't want to be cliche, but they didn't give up on me. We'll put it that way. They really stuck it out, and helped me graduate. I graduated from high school, got a diploma and all that stuff. Um, and then when I was 18, I moved in with my at the time my best friend Jacob, and we got an apartment. Um, was work. I had two. I was working. Um, I was going to college. I had a little bit of college in there before I joined the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps a little bit later. I joined when I want to say I was like 22.
A little late for tradition compared to traditionally.
Yeah, I didn't join out of high school. And we can get into that whenever we get to the like why'd I join or whatever. But yeah, childhood was I don't know.
I mean,
It,
there's some structure to it, structure. There wasn't good structure,
yeah.
but you mentioned school. So I know a lot of like coming from a teaching background, I've been that teacher who has had kids in the class who clearly don't have the most ideal home life, and it can range, what
hmm
less than ideal looks like. But like, where was your safe haven at school? Was it a sport? Was it your friends? Was there a particular teacher or subject that you kind of felt, like, why did you gravitate towards certain teachers? What was it about them that maybe helped you feel like, okay, this is a place where I can kind of just take a break from all the other stuff that I don't like?
Because to me, school was, I'd rather be at school than be home.
Yes.
Just to be around other people. There were a couple, I can't remember my American history teacher's name. I think his name was Mr. Roush. And I fucking love that man. He was great. He was, I don't know, just like the coolest dude I'd ever met. And then, I think she taught English. I'm actually friends with her on Facebook.
That's weird now, dude. I'm telling you, how many
Yeah,
like
yeah, she I
you
think
connect
she
with
taught
people that you used to just walk away from before the internet.
yeah, she taught I want to say she taught English. But she was a ball buster. I mean, she reminded me a lot of my mom, of Ruth, but not like my my mom could be uh I don't want to say evil because that sounds really really bad, but she could be, I mean, like mean, like super mean. So um, I'll just I doubt she's gonna watch this ever, but Miss Stedman, if you're listening or if you're watching, thank you for not giving up on me, and Mr. Roush, thank you for not giving up on me, and getting me through high school and middle school and all that stuff. But yeah, Miss Stedman wasn't she was a disciplinary, I would say. Like she was just very like rule driven. As long as you respected
Yeah.
her, she would respect you, and whatever. But yeah, if it hadn't been, yeah, yeah, if it hadn't been for those teachers and a couple other teachers, and I had some good friends, um, CJ, my buddy CJ Burrows, and my other buddy Matt West. CJ is the one that kind of helped me a little bit behind the line, behind the scenes, like you did and like my brother Shane did with kind of getting all this set up and getting this off the ground. But he was someone that was always there for me, and we've maintained a friendship this whole time. Even though he's still in Florida and I'm still here, or I'm here in Buffalo. But I don't know. Like I played baseball like my two brothers, so baseball was an escape for me. And I also was on the weightlifting team in high school, so that was an escape for me. I mean, I still enjoy lifting weights, even though I haven't lifted in a couple years now. That's something that I definitely would like to get back into. I've done a powerlifting meet once before. I've run Tough Mudders, I've run Spartan races, I've run every other fucking. 5K under the sun. But running, I don't enjoy running. The Marine Corps kind of fucked that up for me. So
I swear to God, and they put so much. I swear to God, it's like school lunches. You will never like a school lunch. They could put filet mignon out, and you will never like a school lunch.
yeah,
Running, military service kills any joy.
yeah.
Like
I
there's no endorphin high. There's just hate.
No, yeah, yeah. It's fucking hate and discontent. Anytime somebody talks
Absolutely.
about running, I'm like, nah, dude, I'm good.
Right.
Um, but yeah, those things. I mean, baseball and school and weightlifting were the things that kind of and my friends, like I was once I got older, I was hardly ever at home. Like I would go hang out with CJ. CJ and I met, and Matt and some of my other friends. We all met in high school. Um, High school was tough for me. Because again, like I almost didn't graduate, so like I just didn't want to be
Cool.
there.
Yeah, school wasn't your thing.
Yeah, but yeah, those are the things that kind of got me through it. Friends and baseball and weightlifting and some really awesome teachers that never gave up on me. So
Yeah, I hear that story quite a bit. I think, like just between friends in the military and just in life in general is hate it or love it, that community around you when you go to school can balance out the bad sometimes to get you through it so that you can get out on
hmm
your own and whether you join the military or go to college or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's I'm glad you had a balance.
And my brothers were, I mean, they never gave up on me. They were always there, especially Shane and his wife Vicky. They were always like, you know, just, like, you got to do this. You got to graduate. If you don't
Yep.
graduate, you're gonna regret it. You got to
Yeah,
do
stick it
this.
out the door.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, and family's a big thing for me, like with my brothers and all that stuff. So, the fact that they never gave up on me or anything like that, and they still, I mean, they haven't given up on me so far, at least I don't think
Right.
they have. But yeah, so that's kind of like what my childhood was like without getting into too much. Like I don't want to go down like, there's really no point of, going
Can't go
down the dark path of, the
right.
beatings and all that stuff. So, it could have been worse. I've jokingly said this in the past, and I've said it before on the podcast too. But I really would like to write a book, because the stories that my brothers and I have, people you wouldn't believe. You would be like, what,
But
you know?
you'd be
So,
following in the footsteps of our now Vice President, Mr. Vance,
oh yeah.
who wrote, Hillbilly Elegy, and it got turned into a movie. And like, if that's not a rags to riches story about like pulling yourself up through a combination of sheer will and military service and using college and like grit and
hmm
family too. You'd be in good company if you decided to write that book.
Yeah, maybe one day, and that's another goal. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see
But
how the
how does that
podcast
figure in?
goes. If
There you go. I mean, get some traction there, and then be like, "Hey, what's your life story like? You're famous.
yeah.
Can I tattoo you?" Uh, so how does that pivot into the military? How did that sort of like, what made you join? Everybody's got their reasons later on, but like when you first joined, because I think that's the key to that question is like when you first decided to join the Marine Corps, like what was it that was really the decision maker for you?
So you're never gonna believe this. So I graduate high school. I spent a couple years just working, going to school, well, trying to go to school, trying to go to college. Um, I went to a little community college there in Gainesville for a little while. But Shane was the big kind of driving factor behind me joining. I mean, I remember him from like 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Like, you should really go in the military. You should go in the military. You should go in the military. And I was like, fuck
Yeah.
that. I'm not
Oh
going in the
yeah.
military. I'm
Even though
not
you
doing
don't
it.
get
I'm
the
not
age, yeah.
fucking doing it.
No.
Um, so I woke up, literally, I woke up one day, just a random, whatever day I had off, Friday or Saturday or something like that. And I called my brother and I called Shane and I was like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. Like I gotta do something, you know, because I felt like I was a loser. I, you know, didn't have anything really to speak of. I mean, I had my own apartment. I was paying my bills, paying my rent. I had my own car. All like I had all that stuff, you
Yeah.
know, but that really wasn't doing it for me anymore. And working at these, I was working at McDonald's, um, or I was working at a video store. That kind of stuff just and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I think that, my first job was at Chick-fil-A when I was 14 years old. Like I've been working since I was 14 years old. Um, so I'm not shy to work or get my hands dirty or do whatever. I mean, I worked in fast food for most of up until I joined the Marine Corps. So like that shit's not easy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Um, and met a lot of good people working. I used to work, like I said, Chick-fil-A, and then I went to Grandy's, and I went to McDonald's, and then I was the GM of my brother's pizza restaurant. So like I had kind of run the gambit, and everywhere I worked, I always started at the bottom and worked my way up. So there was none of this, like I wasn't coming in hot shit or thinking that I was hot shit. You know, I've been told that I'm humble. I don't want to say that I'm humble, but people have said that I'm humble and very respectful and very polite and all that stuff. But so I woke up one day. I called my brother Shane and I was like, "Hey, I don't want to do this shit anymore." And he was like, "All right, well let's go down to the recruiter." And I was like, "Okay." So we go down to the recruiter, and lo and behold, the only recruiter that was in when we went was the Marine Corps recruiter.
Now, hang on. Did you care which branch before you talked to the Marine Corps recruiter? Did you have one in mind, or
I
did you always know?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't. I think to be honest with you, I'm a firm believer of fate and
Yeah.
like what goes around comes around and you know all that stuff. And I honestly believe that it was fate that led me to go into the Marine Corps. You know,
Okay.
But I did not go down there thinking, like I was going to go into the Marine Corps or, whatever. I didn't have a specific branch that I was
Oh.
thinking, even though Shane served in the Marines and then my Tony served in the Air Force. Um, but yeah, no. So I go into the Marine Corps recruiter and yep, they were the only one there, man. And I walked in, said I wanted to join. They I pretty much did whatever I needed to do like right then and there. Like I remember I uh, signed up for the ASVAB. They gave me a urinalysis test because they didn't believe that I've never smoked I've never done any drugs in my life, never smoked pot. I know plenty
Same.
of people that smoke pot, and high school and up before I joined the Marine Corps, I knew plenty of people that smoked pot and did all that stuff, but I never have, and to this day, I haven't. Um, so they didn't believe that I was, I don't know, however old I was, 21 or 22 when I joined. Like I said, I don't remember how old I was. It's crazy that I remember some things, but I don't remember how old I was when I joined. Which, if I really thought about it, maybe I could figure it out. But they gave me a urinalysis test right there, in the recruiter's office, and Shane, was like talking to one of the guys or one of the Marines, and he was like, I can assure you, he was like, my brother has never done any drugs at all. And they were like, that's I guess that's pretty unheard of, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I signed up for the ASVAB, took the ASVAB a couple weeks. Later, I was in the DEP program or whatever for
Delayed entry, yeah.
Yep, I was in the delayed entry program for I think I was in the delayed entry program for maybe like a couple weeks, not very long, not very long at all. And then I went to Jacksonville, which is where the MEPS station is, close to Gainesville or whatever. And then fucking Paris Island, here I come. Um, but yeah, like I knew that I wanted to be a part of something bigger than me, you know. Um, I grew up kind of going to church and all that stuff, and I thought maybe that was something that I wanted to do. But then, like, joining the Marine Corps and becoming a Marine, just like, and I say this like anybody that's out there listening or watching or whatever, um, I think my buddy Tony Graff, the last interview that I did, said this, and this is very much how I feel. If you can do it, if he can do it, if she can do it, I can do it. That's kind of the mentality that I had going into boot camp. Um, boot camp sucked. Um, it was, I think, I mean, you obviously boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp is the hardest boot camp there is. Next, like, short of becoming Navy SEAL or Army Ranger or that type of stuff. But all the
Initial
other
training.
boot camps in the grand scheme of things, the Marine Corps boot camp is notoriously more difficult than
Exactly.
than basic boot camp for the other military branches, right?
Yeah. And let's put a pin in the idea that if you're going like Navy SEAL or something like that, you still have to go through Marine or Navy Basic, which is not gearing you up for a combative
Right,
career field. So you still have to go to basically Navy SEAL boot camp to get groomed into that. So
right,
you join the Marine Corps, it's right out of the gate.
right,
Right away, they're preparing you for that career field. So it is rough.
right. And I learned a lot about myself. Like I learned, like, I mean, the mental, the for me it was more of the physical uh standards that kind of took a little bit of time for me to get in check. But the mental side of it, like the yelling and the screaming and the cursing and all that shit, I was like, this is nothing, man. I come from this. These
Yeah,
are my
yeah.
people, like I'm
You grew
good.
up,
I'm good.
you grew up with chaos, so
Yeah,
like we're not
yeah.
gonna. You-
So like that, like the mental health or the mental piece of it was not a big deal, but the physical part, like doing pull-ups and again running, because I've never been a good runner, and I probably never ever will be a good runner, but running, and that's a big proponent of, you know, boot camp is running.
Yep.
Um, but once I got once I lost a little bit of weight, because when I went, I want to say I had to lose like 30 pounds. I want to say I was like 260 when I weighed in, at MEPS or whatever. Um, but I had to lose like 30 pounds. And then I lost the 30 pounds. And then I continued to lose more weight as boot camp went on or whatever. But once I got the physical stuff down and I was able to do pull-ups and, I was able to freaking cart my ass up the rope and ring the bell on the obstacle course and all that stuff. The swim qual wasn't a big deal for me because I love to swim. So that wasn't a big deal. The rifle range was a little rough for me because I had never shot a gun ever in my life. The closest thing that I had ever shot was a 22, and that's nothing compared to an M16. At least in my opinion, it's not. So I was like a fucking bag of nerves on the rifle range. Um, but once I qualled, I mean, I shot marksman. I was a pizza box for a little while until I requalled and got sharpshooter. But yeah, I mean, boot camp was it was rough, but it wasn't like once you get used to it, once you get the mentality, like I said, like if he can do it, I can do it, and then if I can do it, anyone out there can do it, that's listening or watching this, and I was bound to determine, like, I'm not going back fucking home. I'm not going back to Gainesville, Florida.
Yeah.
I'm gonna graduate. I'm gonna do this. And then I graduated boot camp, and Shane and Tony and all the family from Florida was there, and then went to Camp Lejeune. My first duty station was Camp Lejeune. Hit the fleet. Like I said, I was an ammo tech, so we dealt with ammo in the Marine Corps. So anyone that needed ammo had to come to us to get it, meaning we issued the ammo out to different units. Um, and then I deployed to Afghanistan in 2009, 2010. That was rough. Um, and mainly the reason why that was rough because at the time, uh, I was married. At the time when I served, we were married for about 6.5 years, and she is a Marine as well. That's how we met. She was actually motor T. She was a motor T mechanic in the Marine Corps. So if you're familiar with Camp Lejeune, the ASP is at the ass end of Camp Lejeune, kind of out by like I think it was like Sneed's Ferry Gate, like kind of out by like you're going towards like um was it Kings Bay? But anyway, ASP's out there, kind of on the back end of the base, and then the where my ex-wife was Motor T, which was kind of adjacent to the ASP, so we kind of worked in the same area.
Okay.
But anyway, my daughter was born 6 weeks premature before I left to go to Afghanistan, and she spent a few weeks in the NICU in Wilmington, and I deployed 2 or 3 weeks after we brought her home from the NICU. So we brought her home from the NICU, and then I was gone for almost a year. Um, so that was tough, like being away from her, being away from their mom, because like I said, it wasn't easy on her either. Giving birth to our daughter at so early.
Right.
But she's a trooper, man. She there we were there was some sketchy times in the very beginning when she was um still a baby, like, and I think that's pretty common for newborns because she went almost a whole year and she wasn't walking or rolling over or nothing. So we got her into like physical therapy and all that stuff, and then she did that for like 6 or 7 months, and then she was good to go. Like she hasn't stopped going since. So,
And she's
but
how old now?
she's 15.
Yeah, she's not gonna
She's
stop.
in she's a sophomore in high school right now. But yeah, she's a pistol, man, and like I love her to death, and hopefully, all of this, through everything that we're doing, this podcast and all that stuff, I hope that they both see that they can do anything. You just gotta put yourself out there, so to speak. But
Nice.
but
So,
yeah, being
how
deployed.
old was she? Not to cut you off, but how old was she? So you shipped out, and how old was she at that time? You said she just came home.
So when I got back from Afghanistan, she was a year old. So she was only, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks old when I
Yeah.
deployed. She was, and dude, I mean, I wish I could show you pictures of her, but when she came home, she came home, she was like 4 pounds 9 ounces. So she was like that
Yeah.
big. I mean,
Yeah.
she would fit in the palm of my hand, That's how small she was. Um, but yeah, that shit was scary. As a matter of fact, I'll tell this story. So she was born at the Navy Hospital on Camp Lejeune, and the corpsmen or the Navy doctors or whatever the fuck you want to call them, like instead of pulling me aside, like outside away from their mom while she was actively giving birth, they asked me in the middle of the room if I had done something to send her into labor. And I was like, the fuck you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Did I do something? And the guy the I remember it was a dude, and I was like, look, dude, I'm like, first of all, if you're trying to say that like I kicked her down the stairs or some
Right.
stupid shit like that, like
Yeah.
you're out of your fucking mind. I didn't do any, like we were in bed. We were laying in bed when she had the when her I don't think her water broke, but she knew something was wrong. So we got up, we had her bag packed, and we left. But I'm like, don't ever fucking ask me. Like, if you're gonna ask questions like that, that shit should be done outside, away from the other you know what I mean? Like that probably is not the best scenario. If I did do something, you think she's gonna say that I did do something if I'm standing in the room? Like that doesn't make any
Right.
fucking sense. And I know that type, unfortunately, that type of shit does happen, especially in the military, and that's super shitty to say. I mean, it happens in real life too, and in the real world too. And I get why they ask those questions, but like maybe there should be a different way to ask those type of questions.
And location
Um,
too, like you said.
yeah, like it was just weird. It was just I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? But yeah, so she was, like I said, she was probably 5 or 6 weeks old whenever she came home when I deployed, and then when I came back, she was a year old. She was born 789. So um, but um, so yeah, she was tiny, and then being gone, being deployed, I just I mean, I was deployed to a combat zone, but I don't consider myself a combat vet. I was on a base, but I wasn't kicking in doors or black bagging people or anything like that. So I just want to be very upfront. Yeah, I just want to be very very open and upfront about that. We were on Leatherneck, Camp Leatherneck, which at the time was the largest like military installation in Afghanistan. So it was like the central hub, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, being deployed sucked. I mean, I don't know anyone that thinks that being deployed was a fucking cakewalk. I mean, if you do think it's a cakewalk, you might want to get your wires tested. Um, but I mean, I deployed with a great group of Marines, a great group of NCOs that really took care of us and really like, you know, didn't let people fuck with us, didn't let people do stupid shit. Like they took care of us. They really did. And a lot of I think a lot of the reason why people get out of the military is because they have real bad experiences. Either they get kicked out for whatever reasons or they get treated like shit, which that whole, being treated like shit, I think just comes with unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. You know what I mean? But like we really did have a good group of Marines, and I am consider myself very fortunate and lucky to have deployed with those guys. If it would have been with a different group, I think it would have been worse than what it was. But yeah, I mean, I just we just worked. I mean, we would work 12, 13, 14 hours and then get off and do it all again, for, 7 months basically. Um, and
Did
then
you have
I
to pull
came,
any extra duties while you were there?
what's that?
Extra duties? Did you have to do anything like? Did you have to work mess? Did you have to pull guard duty, or were you allowed to just stay on your job?
So we had to, so the way the ASP worked is we had to have, it wasn't guard. We didn't have to pull guard or anything like that. I mean, we did have guys in our unit that had to go pull guard, but I wasn't one of those guys. Um, but I volunteered for the first 3 months that we were there. I volunteered to stay back at the FASP at the Field Ammunition Supply Point, which is that's where we worked out of. I volunteered to kind of, I don't want to say a using unit tech because that's not what it is. It was just so that like if a unit needed ammunition in a quick, fast, and a hurry, we were there at the FASP ready to give them the ammo that they needed, if that makes any sense.
No,
So
it
like
does.
a
You
doc
were
would come
called.
in, yeah, like a document or a doc would come in the middle of the night. We would get a call on the radio, say, hey, you got a doc, you need to come fill it. So we would get up and go fill it. Half the time, I mean, that wasn't the case. I mean, there were instances where we'd have to get up in the middle of the night and get a unit some ammo, but it wasn't anything crazy. So I did that for the first 3 months, and it was like a rotation. So, we would stay there all night, and then, we'd get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, go back to the can or the hooch or whatever you want to call it, sleep for a couple hours, and then we would go back to the FASP, later on in the evening, in the afternoon, like around 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock. Right as the main guys were leaving, we were coming back.
Gotcha.
So I did that for the first 3 months, and then I volunteered to do. Excuse me. I volunteered to do. We did an EOD burn, so we got to hang out with some EOD guys, and we burned and blew up some grade 3 ammo, which grade 3 ammo is just shit. It's like bad. It's not good. So we did that. Some other guys in my unit got to do a EOD blow where they go out in the middle of the desert and blow the shit up. I didn't do that. I didn't get to do that, but I got to do the burn. That was pretty cool. I'm trying to think. I mean, that was pretty much it. Just
Well,
worked.
what was the transition like when you came back from deployment and now you're back with the baby, you're back with mom, you're settling back into life on the base. What was your routine like when you got back from deployment?
It was. I mean, it was tough for the first couple months, I would say. It was well, it was really tough when it came to like me dealing with my daughter. She didn't want anything to do with me. I couldn't feed her. I couldn't change her diaper. I mean, she would just scream bloody murder, bro. Just, oh, dude, it sucked. It sucked. We went to, so I got back from Afghanistan, and then we all went on leave. You get back, you go on a deployment, and you get a couple weeks of leave or a week of leave or whatever it was. So we actually went to my unofficial grandparents, Wayne and Linda Hollingsworth. Amazing people. They were, like I said, kind of like my unofficial grandparents. They, kind of helped Shane and Vicky raise me, and they're just great people. I love them to death, and don't know where I'd be without them too. So they were a part of my childhood as well. Good, great people. But anyway, they had a town home in St. Augustine, Florida. If you've never been to St. Augustine, Florida, check it out. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. It's like one of Florida, or maybe like one of the country's oldest towns. I mean, it's where the Spanish conquistadors fought the Fountain of Youth
Oh,
was. Yeah, so it's very like old. Um, I think Flagler University, which is where my brother Tony went, is like one of the oldest colleges in the country, if not the world. I don't know, but um, so we come back from Afghanistan. We myself and their mom and then the kids and the mom and their mom went to St. Augustine, and I remember Vicky, my brother's wife. They were there with us, and she was like you just gotta she'll get used to you, it'll happen, and I tell you what, the day it happened, man, it was like she was like my shadow. She went from not wanting anything to do with me to like being up my ass 24/7, when she was a kid, when she was smaller. Now we're kind of reverting back to like I don't want anything to do with you phase, cuz she's older. Yeah. But yeah, that was tough. I couldn't do anything, man. Couldn't do anything. Like I felt bad for their mom too, because I couldn't. If I went to do anything with her, she would just start crying. She would just start screaming her head off. But she eventually came around. She eventually warmed up, and I was able to do all the things that fathers are able to do, and change their diapers and feed them, and all that stuff. But um, I wouldn't say like the transition back from Afghanistan was too out of the norm, like too out of normal. Um, I mean, we got through it. I remember, like I'd have some nightmares here and there. Like I'd wake up in a cold sweat or something like that, or I'd like jump awake laying in the bed and or something, and you know all that stuff. But I mean, I don't remember being too big of a deal. Um, I you know when he coming back from Afghanistan, and kind of because you're nobody really fucks with you. You know what I mean? Like you're
yeah.
just you're just there doing your thing, and you're working, and you got this good group of guys that you hang out with, and then you come back to the fleet. You come back to stateside, and then it's kind of like you got to do all the fucking fuck games. You got to deal with the field day in, and the police calling, and just I don't want to say stupid shit, but stupid
It
shit.
feels petty. It just, I
Yeah.
mean, when you were someplace where like shit could blow up any second, you knew what was important. Then you come back and all this stuff that everybody says is important just does not feel important at all.
Right. Yep. And so that was a little rough, like kind of getting back into that mentality again. But I picked up corporal, so I was an E4 in the Marine Corps. That's corporal. That's a non-commissioned officer. So I was an NCO. I didn't pick up in Afghanistan. I wish I would have, but it just didn't work out. I picked up when I got back. So I was a corporal for about a year and some change before I got out. So once I picked up corporal, um, nobody really. I mean, like I don't want to say I don't want to say I was like this, stellar Marine or, like whatever, but like I think other NCOs, sergeants, staff sergeants, gunnery sergeants, even some of the officers knew that they could count on me, like knew that I would, if they needed me, I was there. I think. I'm not I'm not trying to make myself out to be more than I am. Again, I'm just a dude. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
But I really do think people, and I think this now too. I think people can depend on me. You know what I mean? And I think that was true then too. While
Well,
I was,
like you're saying, you keep saying like they didn't really fuck with you. So the idea that like, and we know it, like in the Marine Corps, I swear to God, if you need correction or if you're unreliable, they are always on you. They're
oh
always
yeah,
double checking you. So if they're not bothering you, there's a real good chance they're not ignoring you. They're just trusting you.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest compliment is to be left alone in the Marine Corps. It's like, oh, you're doing
Yeah.
your well,
Um, but yeah, I picked up corporal in 2010, and then like, I mean, it was pretty. I was in charge of a section. I was in charge of multi-million-dollars worth of ammunition. I had, I don't know, 12 or 15 Marines under my charge. Um, and that was great. Like I loved like, you know, being a corporal of Marines. I enjoyed,
my
you
favorite
know,
rank.
being like the if somebody needed something, or if something went wrong or someone needed to talk, I was always like, look, you guys, you got my number, call me. Like don't think that you're bothering me or anything like that. You're not. I was like, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of each other. We're supposed to be there for each other. So in that sense, like that whole, like the whole brotherhood and like the whole camaraderie thing really came full circle whenever I picked up corporal. And like I said, I served with a bunch of good, a bunch of outstanding corporals and sergeants and stuff like that. That, through the years, kind of, like it's what's what you hear this all the time, but like you come into contact with good NCOs or good leaders, and then you also come into contact with the not so good leaders and NCOs. And I've heard it before, but people will say you take you take a little bit of what you like from the person that you don't, the leader that maybe not so good in your book. You learn what they're good, what's good about them and their leadership, and you use that. And the same for the good NCOs or the good officers. Like you learn. So I had a lot of good NCOs and officers and stuff like that kind of taught not just me but other Marines through the ranks and through the years. And then I got out in 2011. My the kid's mom is originally from Buffalo, so and she had already gotten out prior to me getting out. I think she'd got out maybe like a year or two before I did. But we were either gonna one of three spots. We were either gonna go to Florida or Virginia or Buffalo. So Shane is in Florida, Tony's in Virginia, and then her mom and dad and her family are here in Buffalo.
Gotcha.
So it just worked out. Like the cost of living and school and all that stuff is far cheaper in Buffalo, at least at the time in 2011, it was a lot cheaper. I mean, yeah, comparatively for those three areas. So we got out. I got out, and um, we came here with the kids, and um, yeah, I've been here since. So
Now, was there, she got off of her contract and you were still on yours. Was there any discussion about like, would you re-enlist? Was that even an option? Or did you guys always know that you wanted to, you did your contract, you wanted to move on with your life?
so I think that if I had not been married with kids, I would have more than likely re-enlisted. But and also I also hurt myself. I got hurt when I was in Afghanistan. I hurt my back. Um, so due to that, hurting of my back, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Because there was a point, like once I picked up corporal, I was doing, I was on light duty for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe longer, because I have two bulging discs in my lower back, and I couldn't run without my like legs going numb from the bulging discs and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So I was getting steroid injections in my back for like the last like 6 or 7 months that I was in the Marine Corps. I was doing PT, all that stuff. I actually had to come off. I had to come off light duty in order to get out
Right.
because if I had stayed on light duty, I would have had to wind up going through like a med board or a med
Yeah.
separation.
Yeah.
But again, I had a really good chain of command, and for what it's worth, they didn't fuck with me. They didn't. I had already ran a PFT and a CFT and all that stuff,
Yeah.
so it just like if any of that stuff came up, I didn't because I was on light duty or like after I got off light duty, they were just like just show up to formation and we'll we'll take don't worry about it. Don't stress over it.
Right into surface out here.
Right. Um but I had there was some real good people in the front office that they took care of us, tried to
Sounds like you
anyway.
really, yeah, it sounds like you had a really good culture around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
There's always people.
there was some there were some fuckheads, but
Always are.
yeah. But yeah. Um everything I have today, I have because of the Marine Corps. I have a house, I have a job, I went to school, all this stuff, and I don't regret it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm very appreciative of everything that the Marine Corps instilled in me, and some of it was already instilled in me from as a child, like yes sir and no sir and yes ma'am and no ma'am and please and thank you and all that stuff that these people seem to forget, that kind of comes with that territory or that culture, so to speak. Like I had already all that stuff had been ingrained in me already. Like I already knew how to sew and iron, and half these dudes that go to boot camp don't even know how to fucking tie their shoes, let alone
Right?
wash a load of clothes. So I was already fucking halfway there, you
Yeah,
know?
I remember sitting through hygiene lessons in school circle.
Yeah.
Dudes sitting here telling people like the priority of how to wash yourself in the
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Like,
right?
really? You need to teach somebody that?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
here, you're a grown adult. You didn't pick that up by now, but
Yeah.
who am I to judge? Everybody comes from someplace.
Yep. Yep. But
So when you got out, you knew that you were going to be done with that contract. You come to Buffalo. What was that transition like? I mean, your then wife was prior service Marine Corps too, so that is
mm,
a bit of like having a little bit of that esprit de corps with you. You got somebody who knows your jargon. Like you're running a household together, but you're both Marines, so that
mm,
must have helped some. But like, what was it like coming into the civilian world, especially when you're leaving not just the home and the family you grew up with, but then the Marine Corps base that you've been at forever, and now you're coming to a whole new city with whole new people and a whole new culture.
mm. It was tough. It was culture shock. It was Buffalo is nothing like Florida. I can tell you that. Just
Yeah.
the people, and I say that lovingly. Like since I've been here so long, I have come to appreciate Buffalonians, if that's what you want to call them or us or me or whatever. But it was different for sure. Um, but it, you know, we both went to school. Her and I both like did the whole GI Bill, go to school. I think there was a little bit of time in there where I was doing unemployment and going to school. Um, just so I could get through school. So I kind of like was like the stay-at-home dad while she went to school, and then I went to school, and she was like the stay-at-home mom. We kind of flip-flopped. Um, I went to ECC. I went to ECC. I went to the North Campus here in Buffalo. So ECC is Erie Community College. I got a 2-year degree in hospitality and hotel management because at the time I wanted to either start my own Five Guys or I wanted to start my own food truck. Um, Worked at Five Guys for about 6 months and realized that that was not something that I wanted to do anymore. Had some rather bad experiences with some of the management staff at one of the local Five Guys here, and I just was like, I'm not gonna tolerate that bullshit. Like the whole thing of like treating people like shit and then expecting them to do whatever
Right.
you ask them to do, that shit doesn't fly. And
Mm.
like that's just not cool. So I left that, and then just a lot of like bouncing around from like shitty job to shitty job to shitty job. Um, I want like so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I already had a service connection for my back, and I was trying to get a higher rating while I was doing all this. So I was trying to get into therapy and linking with the VA and getting my primary care and
Right.
all that stuff. Um, but yeah, it was tough. Um, just again, like it's you get out of the military and it's a loss. Like you lost your group of friends. You lost that brotherhood. You lost the camaraderie. You lost you know the world that you had known for 4+ years. Um, and ultimately, I tell this to my kids all the time, and you've probably heard me say this before too, but nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares
Right.
that, you know, I deployed or, you deployed or
They
that we
don't. They're like,
served, really,
for the service, and then they walk
Yeah.
away. That's a, like they punch
Someone,
their ticket, they pat you on the back, and then they walk away.
yeah, someone said that the other day, and it's still, thank you for your service. Like, it's still, I don't want to say it makes me cringe, because that's not the right word, but I don't know. It just doesn't, I can't
It doesn't ring
explain.
true. I don't want to say I don't believe their sincerity. Like I get what you're saying, but it's hard to put into words. Like
Yeah,
I don't not trust that they mean well, but I'm like, is that I don't care. I don't not care that you appreciate it, but that's I didn't do it for your appreciation. It's weird. I know it's well intentioned 99% of the time. I
yeah,
get.
no, yeah,
But I,
I'm
I
not
know that I know
saying,
that kind of like weird feeling. Your reaction to it has nothing to do with their intention. I understand what you're saying.
right, yeah, like I don't doubt that when people say thank you for the service that they mean it.
Right.
I guess that, I guess, somebody I work with kind of put this thought into my mind, but and it's true. The people or the veterans that we should be thanking for their service are the Vietnam veterans, the World War II veterans, the Korean War veterans.
Oh yeah.
Those
We recognize that Korea is still like the seriously underrepresented.
those are the guys and girls that we should really like, give a pat on the back if they'd
I,
even let us. You know what I mean? But yeah, people have said it to me in the past, and I just kind of I don't know what to say to them. Like we joined, you and I joined on our own free will. You
right.
know what I mean? Like I did it because I wanted to do it. I didn't do it because I had to do it. So and I get it. Like again, I'm not trying to be like people. I'm not trying to say people aren't appreciative and all that stuff.
Exactly. This is
Um,
all about like how you react to
yeah,
it.
it's
It has
just
nothing to do with their intention.
right. It's just hard to put into words.
Yeah.
Um, kind of how it makes me feel. But I've tried to get better about that over the years, where I'm like, thank you, I appreciate, and I just go on about my day and just let it be, whatever. But anyway, sorry.
No, no, that I get that. Um, but yeah, so you're in Buffalo, you're doing the college thing, and so after you were at the point where you were talking about like you're almost back to pre-Marine Corps,
Excuse me.
post-Marine Corps, like you're thinking food service is really where you want to
Yes.
go, and then you finish school and like you're kind of in a job that feels purposeless, almost exactly the same position you were in emotionally
Yep.
before the Marine Corps.
Yep.
And then where did that take you?
So a lot of back and forth. I did graduate. I got my degree. I got a 2-year degree in hospitality and hotel management. The Five Guys didn't work out. I got a job for about 6 months working on a food truck. Fucking hated that shit. Um, yeah. Oh, dude. We went and it was. I remember the exact scenario. We went to um the waterfront down here in Buffalo, and we ran out of something, and this lady ripped me a new asshole because we ran out of whatever the dish was.
Customer.
And a customer, yeah, a
Okay.
customer. And that just, I was like, nope, not this is not for me. I'm not gonna do this. Not gonna do this. So then I I don't remember what I did right after that, but I did get a job. So I knew upon getting out of the Marine Corps that I wanted to work with veterans. I wanted to help veterans in some way, shape, or manner, even if that was volunteering at the VA or whatever. So by a stroke of God or fate again, I got in contact with this lady. Um, I'll just use her first name, Celia, and she at the time was the president of the Western New York Veterans Housing Coalition, which is here in Buffalo, which is or a local non for profit that essentially like houses or tries to house homeless veterans. They own, or they did own at the time, they owned 4 different buildings here in downtown Buffalo off of Main Street. So I reached out to her on a whim, and she took a chance on me. I got a job. I started as I was a property manager. So I did that for about a year or so, and then I applied myself, my wife then, now ex-wife. We were going through marriage counseling at the VA here in Buffalo, and or our therapist was like, Cole, you should try to do peer support. I didn't know what peer support was, had never heard of it, whatever. Um, so then fast forward probably about a year. So like I said, I did that for about a year, and then about a year and a half into me working at the coalition, my wife, now ex-wife, we started going through divorce. Um, so that was real tough. I think on one of the podcasts before, I had, whenever she told me that she wanted a divorce, like I remember getting in my car and like I wanted to, straight up, like I just wanted to end it right there. I just wanted to be done. And I had a vision or a dream of me driving my car there. We had a tree in our backyard, this big, huge, like oak tree or something, and I just remember, like, it just flashed in my head, and I was just gonna ram my car straight into that tree. And luckily, nothing. I'd be sitting here lying to you if I had never, if I sit here and say that I've never had thoughts of hurting myself. I have. It's not something I'm super proud of, but it is a part of my story. And I think that's very important that people hear that from me, that I have had and I do have at times. I do have thoughts of hurting myself. Um, and it stems a lot from how I was raised. A lot
Yeah.
of it, some of it's from the Marine Corps as well. Feeling like I'm a failure, feeling like I am not doing anything right, feeling like I can't make people, trying to make people happy, or whatever the case may be. So I just want everyone, like, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible. But yeah, that is definitely something that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis. But so anyway, we wind up going through a divorce, and then through the divorce, I started learning kind of like what peer support was, and what a peer support specialist does, and all that stuff. So in order to be a peer support specialist in the VA, now in the community, peer support specialists have existed for 20 plus years now, but in the VA, they're relatively newer. Peers in the VA have only been around maybe, I don't know, I'd probably say 10 or 12 years, something like that. But through another stroke of luck or fate or whatever you want to call it, I wound up getting a job as a peer support apprentice here at the local VA, meaning I wasn't a trained peer support specialist,
Yeah.
so I had to go to training. Um, I was a peer apprentice for about a year, went to training, got my training, became a full-fledged peer, worked at the local VA for almost 10 years, and just recently left about a year ago. So I'm working at my new job. I actually just celebrated my 1 year mark on the 12th
Okay.
with the new organization. Um, but yeah, like becoming a peer, I can honestly say that it fucking saved my life. It really did. Um,
Serving people gave you purpose.
yeah, like sharing my story, kind of like what we're doing. The whole purpose of this podcast is to share our story, my story, your story, all of our stories, and to hopefully be able to help veterans and other folks realize that, again, you're not alone in this. You're not alone in how you feel. There's, you know, many a times we've walked the same paths, in life.
Right.
But yeah, I did that, and then it just got to be it got to be a little too much for me mentally. So I left and got a new job. I am the case manager for Western New York Heroes here in Buffalo. So Western New York Heroes is an organization that helps veterans with they do a lot of things. But some of the primary things that they do is we provide rental assistance. I don't want to say rental assistance because people tend to think that rental assistance it's like long term, but that's not. We provide financial assistance for veterans that are behind on their rent, behind on their utilities, behind on their mortgage. We do a few other things. We have a scholarship for you know veterans or um not, I don't want to say spouses, but dependents. Like if their kids want to go to school, they can apply for the scholarship that we offer. Obviously, your parents, somebody has to be a veteran, and whatever has to have served honorably and all that stuff.
So you
And then
giving scholarship towards like if there's extracurricular activities, if you're financially strapped and you want to give your kids the opportunity to like do gymnastics or take dance or something like that, isn't there some kind of support along those lines through them?
yep, so that's the Little Heroes grant. That's for
Oh,
the dependents of veterans that, like you said, like you did very well describing it.
okay.
But yeah,
That's the way
we
it was
offer
pitched to me
that.
when I first heard about it.
But yeah, so that's like to help veterans when, if they feel like they can't pay for, like a violin lesson or a violin or baseball equipment or baseball fees or hockey or whatever the case may be, we'll pay to a certain amount. We don't pay it all, but we pay a good portion of whatever it is. Um, so I've been doing that for a year now. Um, and it's really, I mean, again, through luck and fate or whatever you want to call it, it was the right thing at the right time. And I feel like I'm doing well. The kids say I'm a lot happier, so that's a good thing. But yeah, yeah, becoming a peer, and then doing what I'm doing now. Like I really feel like I'm helping people. I'm helping veterans. I talk to veterans pretty much every day. I talk about my story. I share my experiences. I talk to people about going through a divorce, and again, if I can go through it, and not that I'm saying I want people to go through a divorce, but you know, it's true. Kind of like what Conan the Barbarian said: "What does not destroy me only makes me stronger." You know what I mean? So like, what doesn't, yeah, what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. Um, And I had a coworker in the past. He shared a little wisdom with me, and he was like, everything has a season.
Good.
Relationships have a season. Jobs have a season. Your life has a season. Whatever. So I think that kind of put a lot of it into perspective for me, and you know it we didn't work out, but I know that she's a lot happier and I'm a lot happier, and I feel like we co-parent pretty well. I will say that. Um, and that's ultimately what it's about. It's as long as the kids are happy, that's all I can ask.
And that's another that goes right in line with everything you've been saying about like finding purpose, serving others. Raising your kids is the most important job on the planet. And
Yep.
unfortunately, nobody earns a salary for it. You can't
Yeah.
put it on a resume to get you a paying job.
Right.
But absolutely, motherhood, parenthood, fatherhood, the most important job on the planet. Um, but as you're talking about the job transition from the VA to Western New York Heroes, um, it gave me an idea. Like you're still serving veterans, which is outstanding. But what I'm noticing is that like you found a line. Like how much of yourself are you giving up for veterans? You decided you've given yourself enough. You've given enough of yourself to the Marine Corps. It's time to find something new. You are still serving veterans, when you're working at the coalition and the private sector and the not-for-profit sector. Then you go to the VA, and it just reached a point where it wasn't healthy for you to give that much of yourself anymore. It was becoming a drain on you. So finding that line between service to others but keeping yourself healthy, you know, that's something that you've kind of found your Goldilocks zone for. And it took a little while, it sounds like, but I'm really glad that you're doing this so people are hearing that process, that it's never just one change. There's a series of changes, and you got to learn from all of them. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that human services, like the field, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Um, but yeah, anything to do with like helping people, it's taxing. It'll
Yeah.
it'll fucking suck the soul out of you. Um, so I think you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta, at the end of the day, I had to take care of myself, and it was nothing. Again, nothing bad about the VA. I was not treated poorly. None of that. I just the situations, and dealing with some of the veterans that we had to deal with, or that I had to deal with. It just got to be. it just got to be too much, you know. Um, and you know, I still talk to many of the people that work or that I used to work with. So I still have those, you know, I still have those friendships, or at least I hope I do. Um, but yeah, being at West New York Heroes now, I mean, it wasn't much of a transition, you know, ultimately in the grand scheme of things. I'm pretty much doing the same thing that I was doing for the VA, just here
Right.
at West New York Heroes. It's just a smaller agency, and it's a non-for-profit. So again, you know, back in the non-for-profit world, and but you know, just everyone that works there is a veteran, just kind of like at the VA. Most of the people that work for the VA are veterans.
Yeah.
Most of the people that work for West New York Heroes are have been deployed or you know whatever, have been to Iraq or Afghanistan. So yeah, met some really good people. Um, hopefully I'm helping people still. You know, I don't want to toot my own horn or make myself out to be something that I'm not. But I really feel like that, you know, helping veterans, especially veterans or you know people, is something that I was meant to do. You know, I really feel like that this is my calling. Is to help veterans and to hopefully you know help guys and girls realize that it's not easy. Life isn't easy. But it's worth you know it's worth doing. It's worth living. You know, like my brother said, you know, we still need you in the fight. You know, your mission isn't over. You know.
Amen. It's just gonna change flavors depending on where you are in your life, brother.
Yep. Yep.
So any parting words or anything that popped into your head as we're talking about? I mean, I know you've told your story a few times, but anything new come to mind that this conversation led to?
I don't think so. I mean, other than, you know, just like, you know, I really appreciate you again taking your time out to sit down with me and ask me these questions and all that stuff. And I hope that this isn't like repetitive for, you know, the people that are listening or watching or whatever. But I really did want to get, you know, my story out there so that people can, you know, see that I'm not just, you know, blowing smoke up their ass, you know. Um,
Be from the front, if you're gonna make other people put in the hot seat, you might as well do it yourself. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, I mean, you know, I don't know. I would like to at some point, you know, if depending on how this goes, if people like want to ask questions or I don't know if there's a way to do that. I don't. We probably could do like a live, like go live because I have that option to do this through
Yeah,
this.
set up a live Q&A.
Yeah, something like that. I think that would be cool. But yeah, no, I don't have any. I'm nothing really. I think I pretty much covered everything. I tried to do it relatively quick too.
Yeah, yeah,
You
you
know,
did a good
with
job.
so, but yeah, no, you know, thanks for doing this. Thanks for asking me the
No
questions.
problem. I'll hand it back
Um,
over. You do your usual wrap up. I was just the guy that got to read the cue cards.
yeah, yeah. So that was my story. And again, thank you to Paul, and you know, for everyone out there that's listening or watching or whatever the case may be. Again, um, you know, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So I hope you all have a blessed night, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.